Well, I mean, he does it. I did want to bring this one thing up as well, because this kind of connects with what we were saying. I'm sorry. So in the Psalms of David, right? And again, David demonstrates two different ways of atoning for sin. Right? He demonstrates that you can atone for sin through confession. Obviously, I think you quoted Kings, was it? Was it in Kings?
Yes, Second Kings.
Yeah. So when he confesses his sins to the prophet Nathan, right? And this expiates the sins. And then he also mentions the idea of prayer and repentance.
Can I just stay for a second? Sorry. Sorry, very quickly. Let's break you up. He still got punished very severely.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, when he was surrounded by his enemies and things like that.
Yeah, 2 Samuel 12.
Surrounded by his enemies, his wives would get given to the people in
Yep, 2 Samuel 12.
The sword would never depart from his house, and the son he fathered with Bathsheba died.
Wasn't his son Absalom? It was either Absalom or his other son that basically just defiled his wives.
Absalom tried to kill him. Carry on.
So essentially, he has these two ways of atonement, which he demonstrates.
But there's still payments.
No problem. But okay, fine. But he's punished, no problem. And we believe that as well. We believe that even if you repent, if you've done something wrong, you can still be punished. We believe that as well. So when it comes to the Psalms, right? David makes it clear in Psalm 46. He says, "Sacrifice and offering you did not desire, my ears you have opened, burnt offering and sin offering you did not require." Now, for Christian theology, this is quite damning, right? And the thing is, I'll tell you why in a second, and you can respond, obviously, right? Now, the reason why it's damning is because even Paul acknowledges that it's damning. And when Paul quotes it in Hebrews 10:5...
You say Psalm 46?
Psalm 46, there you see it?
Oh, 46.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Now, in Hebrews 10:5, when Paul is quoting Psalm 46, chapter 40, verse 6, he says, "Therefore, when Christ came to this world, he said, 'Sacrifice and offering you did not desire,'" sounds very familiar to the Psalms, "'but a body you prepared for me.'" So it's almost as if Paul is intentionally changing the words of the Psalms, right, in order to make it comport with his theology, which is that of Jesus coming to this world to die for your sins vicariously, right? But that's not what the Psalms are saying. The Psalms are saying God doesn't need any of these sacrifices or sin offerings, anything like that.
No, that's not what it's
no, it's not saying that. So let me read it out. Let me read it out. This is Psalm 40 verse 6, right? It says. Yeah, I understood it. This is the NKJV. So,
did God need a sacrifice then, or I'm not as very
well? The argument from Paul.
Let's not get sidetracked.
From me,
as always happens.
A new Christian, you're looking
no.
Okay. Right, so I just want to read this out, right?
So 40.
It says, 40 verse 6. Yeah. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire, my ears you have opened. Burnt offering and sin offering you did not require. So is this talking about David alone, or is it talking about every generation of Israelites, including the Gentiles?
This is speaking to David.
Right. Yeah. So how do you know that at specific time, and this is an argument I make about the whole Bible, that God didn't, for his specific purpose, require him to do these, to remember, he's already received the atonement for his sin by being punished, right? How do you know at that time, that for that instance, that wasn't a sacrifice solely for him? How do you know that's not the case?
It's problematic because Paul,
at that time,
it's fine. But Paul makes it clear that it was always the case. You needed blood sacrifice. There is no. Remember, 9:22, Hebrews 9:22. There is no remission of sin.
Right. So that's why I wanted to read Hebrews 9 to you anyway, because.
Isn't that the new covenant?
No. It's the new covenant. The new covenant is completely blood sacrifice.
Okay.
This is why I wanted to read Hebrews 9, because I like context. It's my friend.
Let's not get sidetracked. We're trying to wrap up and then we can carry on. Yeah.
We're going to be here all day. Yeah.
Right. So I want to read Hebrews 9 quickly just to wrap this up anyway, because. Yeah, because I was reading the context anyway, and then it just led up to Islam and stuff like that. But I'm just.
That's tafsir.
I'm gonna skip all this.
Ibn Yahya, let's go.
We love tafsir.
Yeah, Ibn Yahya tafsir.
We love it.
The media is definitely necessary. It says necessary. By the way, that's they basically added. That's not in the actual Bible. For where there is a testament, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is in force after men are dead, since it has no power at all while the testator lives. Therefore, not even the first covenant was dedicated without blood. That's a fact, in the Old Testament it was dedicated by blood. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all people according to law, he took the blood of calves and goats with water, scarlet wool, and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people. Now, I mentioned earlier that he mentions earlier in this chapter, right, that in order to get before the holiest of holies, right, you had to sacrifice blood. Because there was the tabernacle where God resides, and there was like the temple, basically like. The congregation couldn't even get in the first bit, right? And then basically, congregation could get in the first bit. Sorry, the congregation were in the first bit. Then you had Moses and Aaron in the second bit. But in order to get into the holiest of holies, where God was, or the sanctuary, or the temple where God was, you had to sacrifice an animal, basically. Right? That's what Paul says, right?
Yeah. And Levitical priests and all this stuff.
Saying this is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded to you. Then likewise he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry. And according to the law, almost all things are purified with blood, and without shedding of blood, there is no remission. No, she doesn't say sins. Doesn't say sins.
There is no remission of what?
So what do you think is, so for example, remission of what? Right? So he's already mentioned
sins, no?
Well, he's already mentioned, transgressions of sins. You do realize the Old Testament mentions the term sin is just basically transgression.
There's many different renderings, yes.
Right, but in a sense, sin being a transgression is not. It's not always the case in the Old Testament that it can be solely forgiven by blood itself. Right, we've come to that conclusion, right?
No.
Well, in the Old Testament, as you mentioned Leviticus, right, there was bread sacrifices.
Yeah.
There was a showbread. Right? So it wasn't always the case every time you did something.
I agree with what you just said there.
That's my point.
Okay.
And Paul's he's made that point earlier in Hebrews. If you want me to read back through it again, I'll do that.
No, it's okay.
Because the problem is we have to read context.
No, it's okay.
Then likewise, he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of mystery. And according to the law, almost all things are purified with blood. Saying almost all things are purified with blood. And without shedding blood, there is almost all things, not all things, almost all things, right? Without the shedding of blood, there is no remission. Therefore, it was necessary that the copies of all things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves were with better sacrifices. For Christ has not entered the holy places made with hands, which are copies of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God. So remember, like Christ is our, what's it called? It's like Moses, so he's like a mediator, but there's another word for it. He's like a high priest. Yes, that's the word. So Christ is the high priest.
But I'll tell you in a second.
Everything.
Let's stay on context, because if we run away from the context, we're going to get the point. I want to know as well, but let's just stay on context, right? But not that he should offer himself. Not that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood of another. So he's not doing what Moses did. He then would have to suffer often since the foundation of the world, but now once to the end of ages he has appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself, and as it is appointed for men to die once, but after this is judgment. So Christ was offered once to bear the sins of many, to those who eagerly wait for him. Sorry. So Christ was offered once to bear the sins of many, to those who eagerly wait for him. He will appear a second time apart from sin for salvation. So it's abundantly clear. Look, the verse is not talking. So when Christ is saying, look, he's a sacrifice for all sins, he's not saying that the Old Testament mentioned that sacrifice is only done by blood. That's not the mention. That's not what Paul's claiming. But he's claiming in the Old Testament the only way to remit sins was by blood. So the only way to remit full transgressions eternally was by blood alone. That's why they did it once a year. They didn't do it every day. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Because it's more permanent than just sacrificing.
They would take all the sins of the community, right?
Yeah.
And they put it into one.
Yeah, they would. Otherwise, they'll just all come up with bread and just throw it in the tabernacle.
So I tell you something crazy now.
Right.
Yom Kippur, right?
Yeah.
So there's two lambs. There's two lambs that are brought. No, this is in Leviticus.
Is it in Leviticus?
Yeah.
Do you know the verse? Because
Yeah,
we're going to figure it out.
it's on Yom Kippur. I think it's Leviticus. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So there's two lambs.
That's the thing, because you understand, Yom Kippur is a tradition of the Jews,
I
right?
know. It is meant.
And they have a Talmud, so they may be.
I understand.
They may be adding certain things into the
Do you
Bible.
agree that there are two lambs? That they have two, right?
I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up first.
No
I'll look it up.
So from my understanding,
I think there's only one lamb to this, but I'll look it up.
There's two lambs. The first lamb takes all the sins of the community, and then the second one is slaughtered. Could be a goat. I'm not too sure, right? We'll have to read Leviticus, right?
I've never known about two.
But there's
I've
two.
not heard of two either.
So the first one is sent
Leviticus
into the
16,
wilderness that has all the sins of the people.
What did it say? There's two.
The second one is slaughtered.
No, that's true.
I know Numbers list like a
right?
bunch of goats and bulls.
Is it Numbers or Leviticus?
So Numbers list like bulls, goats, like two. I think there's two goats.
One gets sent
Sent to the wilderness. Yeah.
Wait. Does it say that in Numbers? Look in Numbers. The first few chapters, I think.
And my point is this, right? The one that is sent into the wilderness isn't even slaughtered, but that has all the sins on it.
No, because he bears our iniquities. He bears the community's sins.
Exactly. But then why isn't he killed like Jesus is? Because remember, Jesus is the Lamb of God. So why wouldn't that be mirrored in the Old Testament with that lamb that has all the sin?
I don't know the answer.
It's interesting.
So what was the question again?
So hang on, does it even need to be done?
I don't know. You guys believe that Jesus is the Lamb of God who died by
I don't see us
character?
Christians losing any points if that's true though.
No, what was your point? Let's get to the point.
Okay, my point is this.
Yeah.
There are two lambs. We all agree. You said you remember.
You want to know why isn't the wilderness one killed?
Exactly.
What, does it matter? We don't
It does.
Tell me how.
Because if it's not killed, the one that contains all the sins of the community, well then, why does Jesus need to die for everyone's sins? Because remember, Jesus takes on all the sins of humanity, and then he's slaughtered.
This is the new covenant.
But sure, hold on. One minute, John. So surely it could be the case that by resurrecting again, he in essence becomes symbolically both those lambs. Because one goes free into the wilderness, the other one dies.
It's an interesting
Well, at
apology.
least you're saying maybe.
And even the Jews have a tradition of Messiah ben Yosef and then the Messiah ben
Many
Yahweh.
messiahs in the Old Testament. Many messiahs.
I mean,
Even Cyrus is a Messiah.
yeah, I know Cyrus called Messiah, but I'm talking about who's considered anointed. Even Jewish tradition mentions there's going to be one anointed figure who's going to come back, blah blah blah, yada yada. But we don't have to.
Yeah, we don't get it.
But, but there's Messiah ben Yosef and there's Messiah ben, I think it's Yahweh or something like that.
But you know the Messiah that you believe Jesus to be, right?
There was two. So that was.
Oh, sorry.
Because the problem is, like, you mentioned something. So, basically, there were two messiahs because they came to that conclusion as well. There was two lambs, right?
Yeah, so
one had to be free, the other had to die.
you find it?
Yeah.
But the issue we have is like the sacrifice that Christ makes could be symbolically both those things. Christ dying, but he becomes that sacrifice lamb. But him rising again, he becomes the lamb that goes into the wilderness.
Sounds so perfect that it's
Interesting.
true. That sounds like God to me, man.
I mean, it's good. With that interpretation.
For me, it's still problematic because I see one lamb taking on all the sins of the community, and then it's sent away into the wilderness, and absolutely nothing happens to it.
But again, but that's you reading emphatically things that are symbolic. For example, even the very verse I mentioned. For example, like in Romans 9, Hebrews 9, it's literally Paul says that these sacrifices were symbolic. Yeah. So these sacrifices were symbolic. They weren't literal. Okay, so like in a sense, we were symbolizing what's going on in the heavenly temple. That Christ goes before the throne of God and atones for our sin. It also says in Matthew 10 that Christ speaks on behalf of us, right?
Yeah,
he's on one mediator between man and God. That's a fact.
Yeah. So you see him being the high priest, right?
Right.
And he's like your mediator, the one that can approach God and that sort of thing, right? Now my problem with that is this.
Are we summarizing or raising?
We are.
I thought, yeah, he's raising.
I wanted to get this one out. I wanted to get this one out for a while, right?
You want to talk about the Quran at all?
No, well we did.
kinda did it.
And then we can go there and speak about the Quran all day. I don't mind.
Can I ask one question?
Let me just say this one thing. So you believe Jesus is the
Why no
Messiah,
point,
correct?
guys, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Does Jesus come from the line of David?
I think he would have to have.
Yeah. In order to be the Messiah.
In adoption, yeah.
Hey, hang on, he's the root and offspring
No
of
problem.
David.
Huh?
He's the root and offspring of David, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, he has no
Doesn't
father.
that mean?
Yeah, he's a seed of David, yeah.
He has no father though.
But he basically, by the line, he's adopted into the family of David. Right.
Okay,
That's.
fine. I'll
It's literally what Eusebius says. Like you should know this, dude.
Yeah, I
I think I've spoken to you about this before.
Eusebius,
Flesh, isn't his mortal flesh from the line of David?
No, it's not.
How you doing, man?
Muslims always say, how can Jesus die? In
I thought you hold me up, bro.
in effect, Jesus can't die, but the body he wore at the time can die. And I never hear people saying that to you guys.
Yeah.
Jesus can't die, but he died for us because his flesh died.
No, I understand.
Do you understand?
Well, Muslims believe he can't die either.
But what do you think of that when someone says his flesh
But doesn't the
died?
Quran say
we
Jesus
that
said,
will die
"Peace be upon me, the day I was born,
Born.
the day I was out."
They are raised, and then they will be raised
He'll
again.
live for 40 years. He'll have a family.
In fact, Obi.
So this is Islamic tradition.
George,
Not your tradition.
George, 1 minute. So Obi, right? Doesn't the Quran say? Well, Jesus says in the Quran, "Blessed am I in the day that I'm born, the day that I will die, and the day that I will rise again." Right? Doesn't it say that?
It says, "Blessed, peace be upon me the day I was born. Peace be upon me the day that I will die, and peace be upon me the day I will be brought back." To
So
life."
was Jesus a pure boy according to the Quran?
A pure boy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was Ghulam.
Yeah. Surah 19 says he was, right?
Yeah.
So would Jesus be lying in the cradle?
Would he be lying?
Would he be lying?
I don't believe he would be. No.
Okay, so then Jesus must have died then.
No. Oh, are you using the Quran verse, Surah Imran, what you just?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what that's saying is that he was born. Obviously, we all believe he was born. That eventually, when he comes back from heaven,
Doesn't
he
say
will
when he
die.
comes back from heaven. Doesn't say that, man.
Okay, but the chronology, this is how we understand the chronology. Yeah. So when he comes back from heaven,
All right.
he will live for 40 years on earth. We have this is multiple.
Yeah. And I know it's hadith,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it doesn't make sense of the text because.
But then we're going to go back to the same argument. Oh, you can't go outside.
No. We don't have to go to that. But Jesus not, because Jesus came to be a pure boy according to Surah Maryam.
I don't understand the connection.
Well, if he's pure, and also the hadith, if you want to go in the hadith, you can, that's fine. The hadith claim that all men have sins, but Jesus' mother Mary don't have sins. They're not without sin. Without sins completely.
So we believe that obviously with the prophets, none of them have sin.
No, you have to believe that Muhammad had sins.
No.
Muhammad did sin. So why does the hadith say that Muhammad's sins were cleansed in his past and his future?
Yeah.
What sins needed to be cleansed?
I understand. So the sins. Oh, I don't even know if it's the word sin. I have to see the Arabic.
It's transgression.
Fine. Remember,
have to get up.
we believe there's two categories of transgressions. We believe there are major sins and there are minor sins.
Still, that perfect person, that Christ
I understand.
wouldn't have any of them.
Yeah, he wouldn't have any.
We believe that all the prophets. Sorry. We believe all the prophets are pure in the sense that they don't commit major sin.
They commit minor sins.
No. But they have
at the
shortcomings.
time that they're made prophets onwards, they shouldn't have.
But we believe that they can have shortcomings, but they will be
we don't believe
rectified.
that. Jesus
Yeah, you don't believe that. I understand. That's why we're different, right? We have a different understanding of the theology.
Did Muhammad ever lie?
Lie?
Yeah.
Not intentionally. No.
Can be halal.
He didn't intentionally lie.
No, he
So
wouldn't.
he lied by mistake, right?
Yeah,
He just did it accidentally.
if you're
right?
unaware of
Just
something,
wait,
technically you're
one
lying.
minute, David, because my point still stands. Look,
Be aware of things.
one minute, John. One minute, John, because he's going to go to.
God, you'd be omniscient.
My point is, you're claiming that the prophets were without sin, right?
Yeah.
But there are instances in the hadith where Muhammad was told by Allah to invent good information. Now that's lying.
Invent good information.
Yes.
I've never seen that hadith in my life.
I'd have to get it up.
Yeah, I've never seen that hadith.
Just
I think it's Al-Bukhari.
very briefly, is lying a major sin?
Lying intentionally, yes, is a major sin.
Okay, but then there's hadiths that tell you that you can lie to your wife in times of war and to bring peace.
Yeah.
And Muhammad lied to his wives.
Yeah. So when it says lies, it means omission of truth.
Which is missing well.
Which is basically a lie.
Again, that's your understanding of what a lie is.
Do you know what admit means?
It's still a lie.
Omit means that you kind of speak around the truth, but you don't lie.
No, wait. No. Omit something means to blind it, to block it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you said to me, "Oh, Obi, where were you yesterday?" And obviously, I imagine you're my wife, right?
And then you were in a club.
By the way, I've got a hadith, by the way, if you want to see it.
Yeah. And I would say, well, I was here, and I was here, and I was here, but I wouldn't say I was there, right? Because I know that would have said that.
Wait. Where were you at 7 exactly? And you were at a club. Then what would you say?
Yeah. So at 7, I was walking by. I was in the vicinity of, right? I was right. So you know.
And then she presses you harder. Where exactly were you? Tell me the
But then
location.
you wouldn't continue the conversation, you know. We're not,
Okay. Well, effectively, what I'm trying to tell you is that there's hadiths that tell you that you can lie in 3 circumstances: to your wife or to your husband.
Okay, then those are outside of. Those are outside of what we would say sin.
You said before that lying was a sin.
No. If it's outside of that, yeah. If it's outside of those things.
I just want to read this hadith.
He wants to read the hadith.
I want the hadith.
It's because I want to be clear with the context. I don't want to just say things. Because the problem is Muslims are watching. They'll go, well, you're making this up, Habibi, you're a liar. This man's a kafir. You even say you're a kafir. I've heard people say that. They said you're a kafir.
Me?
They don't believe. Yeah.
No one said I'm a kafir.
They have. Have you looked in the comments?
See the comments.
I've been doing this for 3 years, bro. Even if I have a debate with you.
Shia guy called me kafir.
No, you're pretty Sunni.
I don't know who it was, but anyway, I'm going to read Sahih Bukhari 2692, right? Narrated Kufum bin Uqba, that he heard, and you can read the Arabic there, that he heard that she heard, Allah's messenger saying, he who makes peace between the people by inventing good information or saying good things is not a liar.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so it's the idea that for
So if you invent information, are you a liar or are you not a liar?
So, if for instance, David and I are having a conflict, and Allah's basically saying, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, and remember it's wahi from Allah, he's saying that to reconcile people together, the best way to go about doing it wouldn't be, oh mate, you know what, even if you're close to like reconciling, you know what, remember back then we said that to you, or we said that, and that, and that. That's not going to reconcile people. What might reconcile is, listen man, he has a lot of good things to say about you. He has things that, you know, he thinks you're virtuous in this regard.
But do you know what inventing something means?
Yeah, I understand what inventing
means. So that means holistically, whether it's good or not, making something up for the purposes of coming to agreement with another person.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, it's dead. That's fine. There's another camera here.
There's another camera there,
Yeah, there's another camera there. That's fine.
Yeah.
I've got a thing here. But basically, that means holistically making things up for the sake of inventing inventing a narrative or story. So even if it's good, it is still a lie because it's false information.
For my paradigm, my Islamic paradigm, it's not a problem. And to be honest, it shouldn't be a problem.
End justify the means.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's what we're saying, really.
Yeah, that's what we would say. The ends justify the means. Perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm not agreeing with it.
No, I know you're not. But you should, because Paul says the exact same thing.
Oh, what?
Romans 9. It's going to bring up Romans 9 again.
I'm just saying, it's the exact same thing, you know.
So you do realise he's not talking about whole out lying, right?
Yeah, he's not.
I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Alright, so
For example, if Paul's talking about something completely different, you can't use that.
Yeah, but he's not though. I know what he's talking about.
Alright, let's read that. Let's read it out then. I mean, I don't mind reading it out. I don't mind talking about the Bible, man. It's brilliant.
It says literally, I rejoice because whether from false motives or genuine motives, Christ.
Speaking about God.
Yeah, about Christ. But then,
So the means justify the ends.
No, but then, that's not lying.
No, he's saying
what?
He's saying
David.
Obi,
come on,
he's saying what other people are doing. He's saying all people are speaking about God. Whether people are genuine or not.
When he talks about people speaking about God for their own gratification,
there's no deceit on his part.
It's not deceit. It's like, for example, I'm
that's not
an
right.
orator, and look at me. I'm talking about Christ. Everyone's around me and they're applauding me. Christ is being preached, but I'm receiving the gratification because I am talking about Christ. People don't lie about Christ because if they were lying about Christ, then Paul couldn't be rejoicing.
I just want to get at
at that same time, there were many people preaching different kinds of Christs. So what he's talking about here is not people lying.
it's Romans 3:7. Sorry.
Yeah, getting gratification from preaching about Christ. The true motive will be doing it to win souls, but the false motive is for your own gratification.
So I think, that's a brilliant interpretation, in fact.
That's it.
So I'm just going to read it out, and I think the context.
They're preaching about Christ for the unglorified.
Yeah, look at me, I'm so good at talking.
Brothers,
Works are being done. And
so I think the context actually backs up what you're saying, because all we have to look. Here's what I want brothers to do. Yeah, read the Bible. Every time they mention the Bible, read the Bible. Every time they mention hadith, bring the hadith. Because the problem is, if you don't do that and you speak from your own mind, you're going to come up with mistakes. And that's what I'm trying not to do, more so now than before.
Well, I'm reading this. If my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases His glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner?
Right,
he knows he's lying.
Well, let's read the context, right? Let's read the context, right? So this is you're on.
Sorry, I was waiting for you to
I'm going to read it. So what advantage then has the Jew, or what is the point of circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because then were committed the oracles of God. For what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make their faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let it be true that every man is a liar. As it is written, as it is written, that you may be justified in your words and you may overcome when you are judged. But if our unrighteousness demonstrates the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unjust who inflicts wrath? I speak as a man. So remember here, God is saying, look, if our unrighteousness demonstrates the righteousness of God, what shall we say? So if we're unrighteous, as in humanity, if we're unrighteous, but that demonstrates that God is wholly good, wholly just, does that make God just for inflicting wrath? No, certainly not. For then how would God judge the world? For if the truth of God has increased through my lie to His glory, why am I still judged as a sinner? Bearing in mind, he's not saying here it's a quote. He's quoting.
Someone might argue that lie.
So he's talking about himself.
He's saying that somebody might argue that. For example, the context before literally says it's just. So it's literally Paul saying, but if our righteousness demonstrates righteousness God, what shall we say? Is God unjust who inflicts wrath? I speak as a man is in brackets. He's quoting, that's what David is saying. He's not.
For example,
Paul's quoting.
John might say that he's 9 foot tall. Like that's what I'm not saying it. I'm not declaring it. I am quoting. The context there is that he is saying that others might say X.
Yeah.
But why don't we say this? Paul himself isn't talking. If he was, it wouldn't be in quotes.
Yeah, and then he says in verse 8, in fact, agreeing with what David just said in verse 8, right? And why not say, let us do evil that good may come, as we are slanderous report. Now, we're slanderous report that even today, we're reported today as Christians, as those who believe we can do whatever we want, and when we're saved, it doesn't matter. The blood of Jesus is going to save us. Like, you know what I mean?
Salvation through grace.
Yeah, all that stuff. That's what we reported as saying. But Paul is saying, and why not say, let us do evil as good may come, as we are slanderous reported, and some affirm that we say their condemnation is just. So those who believe in that and those who portray those acts, their condemnation is just.
Those saying those quotes that he mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's not Paul speaking in the first person.
Yeah.
He's quoting them.
He's quoting other people.
I let's agree to disagree, because we see in the Old Testament where Isaiah literally says that God has deceived him, and in fact God has said he sends a lying spirit.
Yeah, he does send the lying spirit.
So so if God is sending
Who does he send that lying spirit to?
to deceive the people.
People that have already got that lying spirit.
Yeah.
But he's still lying.
It will send them a strong delusion.
No, it's not God himself deceiving, it's God sending the lying
Then
spirit.
you will turn around and say to me that when Allah deceived the people with someone else on the cross, that's incorrect.
No, Allah says
But
he's the
he says
best
in
of
Isaiah.
deceivers. He doesn't. Well, our God doesn't say he deceived anybody. He said he
doesn't
said
mean deceiver.
it does mean it's Kairo Makareen. That Makkah literally is a root word of deceive. That's a fact.
Okay,
it's the whole line.
which grammarian says that? I mean,
Many Arabic grammarians
give me
say
one
that.
grammarian that says that. Give me one grammarian that calls him deceiver. I want a classical scholar, please,
Right.
that says Mekir.
Well, how classical are you talking?
Oh, sorry, go on.
What?
Oh, sorry, did you want me to stop talking?
How classical are you talking?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Sorry, I thought you said stop talking. I was like, okay.
I didn't say that. I don't know what. I said how classical are you talking?
How far? Do you want 8th century, 9th century? What do you want?
Yeah, 8th century is perfect. You can find 8th century. I mean,
Why did you do that? So why do you go need to deceive? I've always wondered this about the whole cross.
about the crossing. Now, here's the other
need to
thing.
do that.
I'll tell you what it's saying.
Yeah,
It's not what you think. It's not Allah changing the person's figure and he made somebody else there. I would argue something else. I would argue that it was made to appear so. The New Testament writers are making it appear so. That Jesus was killed on the cross. It's not Allah who did it.
It's talking about Allah.
No, it's not. It's not. Read the verse.
in the Quran.
Read the verse.
Yeah,
Get the verse up. Get the verse
It
up.
said, doesn't it literally say?
But it was
I
made to.
I made it
I didn't say
appear
I.
as if Jesus.
It says, but it was made to appear so.
Why was it made to appear though? I've always wondered that.
Because the New Testament writers are the ones who made it appear so, because they lied.
Okay, so the same words. Sorry for
You
interrupting.
understand what I'm saying?
Sorry for interrupting. Right, the same word Makkah is actually used in Surah 6, verse 123. Right, it says here, even so we place in everyone ringleaders of its wicked ones to deceive, or Makkah, or Keru Makamin, therein, well it doesn't say Keru Makamin, sorry, there in Arabic, Limkar, what, is he, somebody put something on me? I don't know. These people, man. Even so we place in every city ringleaders of its wicked ones to deceive, therein, Arabic, Liam Karu, but they against themselves shall they scheme. Yam
Sorry, show me the.
So that's basically, this is the site I got it from. Yam Karulu. And it's basically like Surah 6.
Who is it?
Who is it?
Yeah, who's?
So Obi is.
So basically, this is an Arabic grammar. So he's literally
No,
studying
so I'm
Arabic.
asking for like Sufyan bin Thawri. I'm asking for like even Imam Abu Hanifa, who's a grammarian.
So you're asking for Muslim scholars who agree with your position and not mine to affirm your
These are
position.
the earliest scholars. The earliest scholars. What do you want?
The early scholars are Arabic.
Sufyan bin Thawri. He's early.
Was he a Muslim?
Of course.
But that's the problem, right? He's just looking for Muslim scholars to
Yeah,
affirm
because they understand the Arabic language.
But you're telling me there's no Arabic scholars now who would say that Makkah means to deceive.
I don't know. I'm not too sure, but I know what the classical scholars say.
So is there any Quran that I agree?
No, he says the classical scholars.
yeah.
What he means is the scholars that agree with his position.
You can't trust the translation. You have to read it in Arabic.
You'd have to go through transliteration, like you would with the Hebrew.
Because God seems pretty inflexible, man.
Well, then you have to say the same thing about Tanakh. It's in Hebrew as well. You can't just understand Hebrew, right? In fact, you know what Jews would say to you? You know what Jews would say to you? The Jews would say to you, you have never read the Old Testament and you've never read Tanakh unless not only you speak Hebrew, but you are conversant in Tanakh and Hebrew. So, it's the same argument. We would say that if you're not able to access that language, then you are a slave to the translation.
I think our problem is, bro, that God, our God, even according to the Jews, invented many languages, and he invented a way for many people to get access to them. For example, it says in the Old Testament, in Isaiah, in fact, and most Jews will agree with this, that there will come somebody who will be a light to the Gentiles. Light to the Gentiles, right? You can't be a light to Gentiles if there's no way figuratively to speak to the Gentiles or to even converse with them. Right? And if all nations will know this messianic figure, how are they going to know it?
What else does Isaiah say though? He says that everybody will grab onto a Jew and will ask for them to give them the knowledge of God, but the Jews are misguided and the Jews are seeds of the devil according to the New Testament. So it doesn't make sense. And it says that when the
No, it doesn't say. Hold on, misquote. It doesn't say that the Jews are the seed of the devil. It says because there was Jewish followers of Jesus. Did you know that?
Very few. I mean, the disciples.
But there were Pharisees that followed Jesus as well. Right? Did you know that? So basically after Jesus died and rose again, there was Nicodemus, there was others that followed him as well.
According to Acts.
I'm talking according to Christian history. So there were like 10,000 or so supposed Jews that
That's
followed
according
him.
to Acts, isn't it?
I mean, That was many
Yeah,
Jews,
yeah. And I concede your traditional.
And he also says even during Jesus' time that many followed him. Many forsake what they were doing and followed him.
They
These were
saw,
Jews.
they saw his miracles, but then here's the problem you see, right? And this is why for me the whole Jesus narrative doesn't make too much sense. If Jesus is doing all these miracles, feeding the 5,000 twice, by the way, right? He's bringing people back from the dead. Huh?
Once.
No, was there twice? Two
was
feedings
5
of
and 4.
Oh no, wait. Yeah, there was 4. There was one with 4,000. Yeah, 5.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So 9,000 people. Okay.
In total, sure.
In total, yeah. Yeah. So if that's happened, he's bringing people back from the dead. Jairus' father, Jairus knows him, brings back his dead daughter. Everyone knows him. Then why is it when he's in front of Pontius Pilate, all the Jews are unanimous? Crucify him! Crucify him! Doesn't make any sense.
Because they accused him of blasphemy.
Very simple, yeah.
So they believed in him and then they disbelieved?
No, but
Well, it weren't. That's what I mean. The Pharisees themselves, or the Pharisaic order, did not believe in him. Many of them didn't. In fact, many rejected
The
him.
whole crowd of the Jews are saying crucify him.
Yeah, but
The whole crowd, but not all of them.
Is the crowd composed of everybody who already believed in him, or the mob who was simply following the Pharisees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So why is it?
Pay the people in the crowd? They got people in the crowd to shout,
I don't know about that.
crucify him.
There were many Sadducees and Pharisees that didn't follow Jesus at his time. There were many.
I understand that, but here's the issue, you see. Remember what I built for you before? The idea that Jesus did all these miracles for everyone, and then the crowd is so enormous that, remember, Pontius Pilate can't do anything. It feels like an earthquake. He doesn't want to, right? He doesn't want to crucify Jesus, right? But he said he's overpowered by the Jews. There's just too many of them are asking for his crucifixion.
He doesn't say there's too many of them. He says that
Why does he feel pressured to release...
because they basically said to him like, we'll tell Caesar basically that you shouldn't be in this role or something like that.
No, but it describes the roar of the crowd.
Right.
You agree with that, right?
I agree there were many there, but that doesn't therefore negate the fact that Jesus had many follow him.
But if there were many, you would expect to hear at least some in the crowd saying, "No, don't crucify him." But you don't hear nothing, and nothing is recorded.
Okay, no.
That sounds like an argument from silence.
That's completely incorrect. Because if the majority are yelling a thing, and the minority are yelling the opposite thing,
So it's a minority.
you will not hear them.
So you agree with me? It's a minority.
But I am telling you that the crowd was not composed of those who witnessed all of his past miracles.
Why not?
That's what I'm telling you.
How can that be possible? We literally just
Because
we literally said 9,000 people witnessed him feeding the 5,000.
Yes.
And the 4,000.
Can you then tell home? Can you then tell me that the crowd was composed of that 9,000 along with people who also didn't
I mean,
like
how big do you think the population of Jerusalem is at that time?
Well, you're the one who told me that
It would have been way more than 9,000.
How many?
It's over a million because you told me.
I'd have to look it up. It's probably more than
Yeah,
that.
that's what you told me. So it's over a million.
Yeah, it's probably
Hang
more
on,
than
you accept that
that.
now?
Huh?
You accept that now?
No, I'm saying you told me that. I didn't look it up, but you told me that. So
Okay.
By your account from last time,
Yeah.
it has to be at least over a million.
Okay, so you're telling me that all these people, there's, I don't know, out of how many Jews that are there shouting for his crucifixion, so no one is there except for Peter. No one's there except for Peter supporting him.
Okay.
And even
Right,
then,
remember, all his disciples were out.
even then Peter's saying,
But you're forgetting, the New Testament does describe his disciples running off. How do you know that many didn't run off from him? Right? For example, it says in the Old Testament that the sheep will be scattered. They will run. So how do you know that wasn't the case, that many fled in fact because they were scared of being attacked by Romans and the Jewish Pharisaic order?
Well, if it was as big a number as you guys are saying, I would expect to see at least more than one person there at the crucifixion.
It's as simple as this.
really?
It's like saying if Muhammad was actually a prophet, why did he have barely any followers for the first 13 years of his ministry?
Well, yeah.
But then suddenly after he came back from Medina, then he had more followers.
Yeah.
So effectively, like,
Yeah.
it's like, that's a bit suspicious. Like normally prophets have more than 100 followers after 13
And then he become a military leader with a lot of money. It's like,
So
what?
I'm not saying that the low number is a problem, by the way. I'm not saying
But you are.
No.
Because your argument literally is, if he did all these miracles, why is the majority of the crowd chanting for him to die?
My thing was, the storyline to me doesn't make any sense, right? When we have this situation...
Skip to the ending then. Jesus had to die.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
God
yeah.
made it so Jesus died.
And
So
we-
therefore half of the crowd, half of the crowd that was shouting kill him, that was God's will. So shouldn't that be the answer?
But where's this half coming from? There's no half,
Right, so
there's only
so
Peter.
So if more people are shouting crucify him than let him go, that means the half that was shouting crucify him is a majority, yeah, I guess. So that's God's
I mean,
will.
I wouldn't call it a half. I'd say that majority,
What David said,
overwhelmingly.
when more people are if 51 people are shouting and 49 people are shouting, you hear You hear the 51 people.
But there's no mention of 49 people.
I think the problem is they're arguing from speculation. The problem I have is like Jesus was taken from the Garden of Gethsemane late at night. Nobody would have even known he was there, other than his disciples. And Peter, in fact, tried to save Jesus because he took out his sword and lopped his ear. I mean, accounts like obviously, I think it's Matthew's account that says it was like
whoever lives by a sword dies by a sword.
Yeah, stuff like that. So, look, long story short, like there were. Maybe it was the case that many of his followers weren't aware where he was at that time. They didn't know he was. Maybe they went home, like David rightly said.
A while ago,
I mean, this is not a real problem. I don't.
They don't have WhatsApp to like, yo,
Jesus, group, man.
roll up, man.
Roll up, my man.
The disciples ran away though, so they did know.
How do you know what?
No.
It weren't all the disciples.
No, we're talking
about. Yeah, the disciples ran away, but it weren't all of them.
We know that.
Yeah, we know that from the Bible.
We're talking of those who saw the miracles, the 9,000, the 5,000, not the 11.
I think there's
well, I believe that
a lot more happened in his ministry. Yeah.
So I believe it that in Garden of Gethsemane, when it says that the disciples ran, it was talking about those who were in immediate purview of him at that time. So we're talking about the 9,000 or whatsoever.
You are making inference though.
But it's an inference based on the text. So it's not really. It's just.
Mine.
But here's the thing, right? But here's the thing. Look, the problem is we still have the problem that you interpret your Quran, which the Hadith scholars themselves do all the time, and adding things to the Quran that are not there. They're not found in the text.
We'll be here, mate.
Johnno, I'll find you.
Oh, that's fine. Adding things to the text that are not emphatically there, and then claiming, well, they're there because according to this tafsir, it says they're there. If you can do that, so can we. We can make the same tafsir that you can. And in fact, I think church fathers agree with me, not you.
So did the church fathers say that half of the group was
I didn't say half the group.
Sorry, I'll be that.
That was what John said.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So, do the church fathers say that all the ones who believed him before ran away?
No.
Other than the disciples?
No. They don't. What they do mention is basically this. Look, that people witnessed Jesus being taken in the Garden of Gethsemane, but that those disciples in immediate purview, like for example the 12 disciples, for example, would have been the ones that had fled.
Right.
But the actual, so we're talking about many disciples right now, they actually would have went home.
There were more than 12.
This was actually mentioned, for example, where is it? It's the Samaritans, for example. So a group of Samaritans actually believed in Jesus Christ, but they didn't follow him. They stayed where they were.
Yeah.
Oh, the good.
Samaritans.
There were even
I know there's a parable about the Samaritans.
I think it's John 4, is it Samaritan woman or Samaritan?
The Canaanite woman?
Is that a Canaanite woman?
No, that's different.
The one who calls the dog?
The one by the well.
No, it's a Samaritan.
The one by the well.
Jesus meets a Samaritan by the well.
Yeah.
And then she goes and says, oh look, Jesus has known all things that I've done and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In John,
Yeah, and then Jesus actually goes to that town and stays with them and they believe him.
Yeah.
They didn't all follow him, they stayed where they were. So it's likely they could have stayed where they were.
There's even a funnier one. I can't remember if it's in Matthew or not, but it's a case where the same thing happens. Christ is a miracle for an individual, and the individual goes to his town and tells the people of that miracle. And the people come out of the town saying that they don't want Christ here. And they want to go elsewhere.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the cleansing of the Nazarene, the Gadarene demoniac. Basically, the guy in chains has come out, he's like just raging, and then basically they heal him completely. And they're like, oh, well, please leave our land, and he just basically just sent spirits and pigs.
Is that even those who saw the miracles, like the Quran says a little bit, still didn't believe, and in fact didn't even want him to come near them. So again, the majority of his true followers might not have been at that particular hearing. It happened overnight. So unless somehow they were able to gather in unison in that one area, then likely those who believed in Christ didn't even know what was happening at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like you're making a big inference.
Look, I'm gonna leave you up because I've been talking for like an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to keep talking, or what's this? I mean, are you gonna wrap up? I don't know.
What y'all want to do?
I did want to just mention one more thing because we kind of. No, because it was about the Davidic line. And you mentioned obviously that the Levitical priesthood. So the reason why for me that Jesus cannot be, well, I don't believe he can be from the line of David because he doesn't have a father. That's my first argument. My second argument.
Father by adoption.
Okay, that's your response. So, he also cannot be a high priest. He cannot be a high priest because he does not come from the line of Aaron. So because look, he has no lineage. So he can't come from either one. So both those narratives about him being the Messiah and also the high priest, they both collapse because his lineage is non-existent. And by the way, you can't be both from the line of David and from the line of Aaron. That's not how it works, right? You've got one line for this, one line for that. You have to make up your mind. And both lines are problematic, to be honest with you. for Jesus, right? If you don't have a father, well then you have no lineage. I'll give you the verse. If you don't have a father, you have no lineage.
Well, I think you brought this up with Kate, and she told you that if there are no males in a family, then the lineage can be taken from the females.
Yeah, it can be. By necessity, it can be, and that's what Eusebius argues as well.
Numbers 118. Hey, Suleiman, long time, man. What are you doing back here, man?
So in regards to the high priest
wait,
thing,
let me just get the numbers one, yeah?
Yeah,
because this is about the bloodline, yeah?
Yeah.
So, and they assembled all the congregation on the first day of the second month, and they recited their ancestry by families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names from 20 years old and above, each one individually. The fathers' houses.
That's the telling of an event.
Yeah.
It doesn't stipulate that you have to only announce your ancestry from your father.
Yeah, that's never. If
you don't have it, then you can't say it.
So like,
tell me where in the Old Testament it says you can come from the lineage comes from the
so in a generational lineage, for example, if you like numbers for itself, we're counting the numbers of different houses, for example. This is during the time of Moses. But if you read later, like the Mosaic, like the idea of the Moses seat or the Mosaic like principles, they changed. There was judges now to look after Israel, and then there was finally a king. So it's no longer by lineage that people. And for example, I think Moses comes from the tribe of Levi.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Moses. I mean, yeah, he would do. Yeah.
And the descendant of Moses is David. That's a fact.
Descendants of. I don't know about that.
I think it's an historical fact. I would say more a bloody.
I can't say yes or no.
I would say more. I do believe it could be the case that Moses is directly connected to the line of David.
I'm not sure. I'd need to look that up.
Right. It would be good to look it up.
Yeah,
but presupposing that, I think it's safe to say that he does come from the Levitical priest.
If that's the case, that means that you can make the argument that two lines converge in one place. Because remember, but then again, you have the problem where Moses isn't a Messiah, right? He's not a Messiah. He's a prophet, but he's not a Messiah.
Well, do you know what Messiah means?
Messiah means an anointed one.
Anointed one. Do you know what that means?
Someone who's chosen by God.
Someone who's chosen by God to fulfill a specific role.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Was Moses chosen?
Yeah, but remember, even you guys believe that Messiah is another title altogether, right?
Right.
Another category, right?
The messianic figure, the final Messiah. Is
then you can say Adam was anointed.
Yeah, we can say that. We can say. Well, there's no problem with that.
But then you guys, hang on. You guys always say there's only one Messiah, it's Jesus.
No, we say the final Messiah is Jesus. For example,
Cyrus. That's the first time I'm hearing that.
Cyrus is called a Messiah. Do you realize?
Oh yeah, I said that to you. Yeah, I know.
And there's many. There's even a guy named Cyrus who comes here and claims that like Cyrus is Messiah because he's literally God on earth or something like that.
Yeah. Do you know what Cyrus means?
No.
Koresh. It comes from the word Koresh, right? It also.
I've heard the opposite. That Koresh comes from Cyrus.
Yeah. I'm sorry. No,
wow.
That's what I meant. Koresh is.
Now he's going to Mahomet's tribe. You know the Qurayshi tribe.
Koresh is the actual name, the Hebrew for Cyrus. Koresh.
Fair enough. I mean, like Cyrus was chosen to free the Israelites from Babylon, so he became God's anointed at that time.
It was even foretold. That would happen.
But the anointed, like for example, the angel of the Lord, for example, the angel of the Lord doesn't have a name. It's just called the angel of the Lord.
The Talmud says it could be Michael.
I don't care what the Talmud says, mate.
They also say it could be.
It also says that Jesus was buried in excrement. I could care less what the Talmud says.
I mean, if you're gonna make appeals to the Talmud when it comes to Christianity, then that's the equivalent of me, for example, of me making equivocations to the Sikh scripture in order to explain Islam.
Yeah.
It comes afterwards.
Yeah, I understand.
And it's not related.
Well, they would argue it doesn't come afterwards. They'd argue they have an oral tradition that goes all the way back.
Sure.
That's the argument they would make.
They might, but rabbinical Judaism, it comes after Christianity. That's a historical fact.
Also, Jeremiah 31 literally says that.
Gamliel, remember the Pharisees. The Orthodox Jews believe they come from the Pharisees, and the Pharisees predate Christianity. So.
No, but the idea of writing down the old tradition. The comings of that start from after Christianity.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I mean, so the tradition of writing down the Tanakh doesn't come until like 1,000 years after Moses. You know, so I mean, that, just because something isn't penned doesn't mean that it's.
But I wouldn't then make the argument that Christianity predates Judaism as a result.
You wouldn't do what?
I wouldn't then make the argument that Christianity predates Judaism as a result. However, I will make the argument that it predates rabbinic Judaism.
Okay, fine. But remember, again, rabbinic Judaism predates Christianity.
I just told you that it didn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The Talmud was written in the first century.
Wait. But yeah, I understand it. Under Rabbi Gamliel.
Yeah.
Right? So, who apparently is a teacher of Paul.
I mean, not Gamliel. No, it's attributed to Gamliel, but I think it was written in the third century.
Well,
not
his students, right? They
his
were-
supposed students, yeah.
But
I mean,
do you believe that Paul was a student of Gamliel?
Yeah, that's what the Bible says.
Okay, why do you think that?
I mean, Paul of Tarsus, well, because ultimately, like you would say, the Quran says, for example, that the angel Gabriel sent the Quran to Muhammad, and like you believe that.
Okay, so you would accept it by virtue of it being in the New Testament, or yeah?
Yeah.
That's why you accept it. Okay, but here's the problem you see with that narrative. By
the way, if you're going to make historical arguments, I just want to stop you there. If you're going to make historical arguments,
am I?
No,
I'm not. It's from the Bible.
Well, I'm just saying, you can't find historical Esau or historical Moses from your Quran, or even historical Abraham.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm just saying.
I understand.
Right.
Well, it's actually from the New Testament. Right?
Right,
so we know that obviously Paul, his job was to go and persecute Christians, right?
Yeah.
And he was actually on his way to Damascus when he had the revelation. And yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so the problem I have with this story is that Paul himself, again, I'm only sticking in the New Testament, no history here, right? In the New Testament, he makes the claim that he's a Pharisee. He makes the claim that he's a student of Gamaliel.
Yeah.
You agree with that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we read Acts, Gamaliel actually says, do not persecute the Christians. If they're upon falsehood, then they will disappear, right? But if they're upon truth, well, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So Gamaliel gives a direct argument from Acts. I'm not giving anything. I mean, you would say Acts is historical.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So Acts, which is a historical document, according to you, right, is saying that he is a student of Gamaliel, and his teacher Gamaliel is saying, do not persecute them.
Right.
And when he's persecuting the Christians, he's doing it under the authority of who?
Gamaliel, yeah.
No, not Gamaliel.
Oh, sorry, not Gamaliel, sorry.
No, not the Pharisees.
I believe it was Pharisees.
Ray, where's it going?
The high priest of
Yeah,
Jerusalem.
the high priest, sorry, yeah.
Who is a?
He's a Pharisee.
He's a Sadducee.
He's a he is
high
a
priest, remember?
Sadducee.
Yeah, the
What
high
is
priest.
that?
Yeah, he's a Sadducee, right? He's a Sadducee. So, and this is why I say there's some things in the narrative of the New Testament that just don't sit right with me. This is one of them, right? So, I'm expected to believe, well, you guys are as well, that the best student of Gamaliel, the Pharisee of Pharisees, right? He's the best of the best, okay? He not only went...
It doesn't say that part.
Fine.
Doesn't say that
I'm
part.
ad-libbing a bit, yeah, no problem, okay, fine. Right? We're expected to believe that the best of his students, the Pharisee of Pharisees is a big statement, by the way, that means like you are the best, right? He's not only going against the advice and command of his teacher, Gamaliel, supposed teacher Gamaliel, but he's also taking orders from the high priest of Jerusalem, who's a Sadducee.
I don't see a problem with that.
I don't know.
No, I don't really see a problem, because again, like, we can interpret it as at the end of the day, like, Paul, like, for example, is being educated by Pharisees. Yeah. We don't know when exactly he was under the teachings of Gamaliel. It doesn't really state that at all.
I was going to mention that. Is that exactly when is Gamaliel making that statement?
Yeah.
Is this before
the event or after the event?
Or after the
Right, we don't really know that. We don't.
This is Acts. It has to be after.
Yeah, it has to be after the conversion, technically.
Yeah, written by Luke, right?
Yeah.
So it would be. Well, Luke's one of the students. I mean, it doesn't give a chronology of events, right? But again.
But I do believe it makes sense if it was after. I don't believe it was before. I think it was after. In fact.
If it's in Acts, it should be after.
It was Acts 9, I think. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to bring it out,
and I think Acts 21 recounts the same event as well. So in Acts 9, like obviously, like Paul's on the road to Damascus, and he gets blinded and stuff like that. He's about to just basically go and hand them over to prison, Christians.
Who?
He's about to commit Christians over to prison, and then long story short, he's blinded and stuff like that. As for the whole thing about Gamaliel and the Sadducees, I mean,
Okay, no,
I don't think it's a problem.
Acts 5.
Is Acts 5?
Acts 5:38 to 39. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men.
Oh,
let
that's
them alone.
Gamaliel.
Let them alone, right? For if the counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. As in, it will be obvious, right? But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against God. Right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly how I sort of rendered it before, right? Just in a complicated way.
Can you then tell me that this was said before he went to
Well, I don't know, Acts 5. I mean, I don't know what's happening in Acts 5.
I think in the book of Acts, this is post-conversion, because this is when Paul comes to the Council of Jerusalem to have that conversation with the disciples to make sure.
I don't want to get it wrong, because I do think it's Acts 9. I don't want to get, because I want to be correct with the text.
Wait, what's Acts 9?
The conversion. I think it's Acts 9.
It is Acts 9, yeah.
Yeah. I think that the issue we have here is not what's happening. So when Gamaliel says that, for example, is Paul at this council? And the other thing is, like, what's the word? So, like, Gamaliel's still using accusative language. He's saying is if this thing they're doing is of naught, then let it be. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right, he's not using language that would infer that he somehow agrees with what Christians are doing.
Yeah.
Right, so in a sense, he could have ordered Paul of Tarsus to do that. Paul could have been in another region, out to go and destroy them. Within the space of 3 days, he didn't hear what Gamaliel said. That could happen as well. I mean, again, it sounds like an argument from saying, but what I'm saying is basically, look.
I would still find it strange that a Pharisee of Pharisees is taking orders from a Sadducee, the high priest of Jerusalem. I'd still find that strange.
I don't know.
I concede what you said before. I concede that. Maybe he didn't hear it. Okay, fine.
That's not really a problem.
It's like fashional wars where they just ignore each other completely.
Yeah, but the Pharisees.
If the high priest was a Sadducee, then they would have.
I know, but the Pharisees, their theology is antithetical to the.
There was no raising of. Each other, because for example, when Jesus addresses a Pharisee, immediately after he addresses a Pharisee about about the raising of the dead, and then he goes on to mention about the fact that he's the son of David, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Praise God. But basically,
Matthew. Again, I've got the one about him, about who David called the Christ.
Yeah, who did David? So that was in the immediate purview of where the Pharisees were. So they weren't just out there stoning him like certain Shias do to certain Sunnis, and vice versa. So they were still part of a crusade. I don't see it. I don't see a problem with that.
Wouldn't it be ironic if the Shias end up being that one sect that go to heaven and everyone else?
I mean, that's the thing. We've had this conversation before, haven't we? Who are the sect that go to heaven? And you're saying it's
whoever holds on to the Quran and Sunnah.
The Sunnah, yeah. But the Quran doesn't say this.
But the Sunnah is very arbitrary, and the Quran is like.
Well, I wouldn't say it's arbitrary. I mean, again, I could prove to you the veracity of hadith, right? And I could prove to you that the Shia hadith are very, very, very removed from that time and place, right?
But I could prove to you that your hadith is removed from that place. All you could do is show me chains of people. But by the way, there's one chain that just says 2 Muhammads. I think that's for.
That won't be like a Sahih though.
But yeah, Sahih al-Bukhari, sorry. Sahih al-Bukhari.
Well, that's impossible. It needs to be in Isnad.
There's literally 2 Muhammads in the chain.
2 Muhammads?
Yeah, 2 Muhammads.
Okay, well that
No, just the name, like Muhammad and Muhammad. No Ibn, no this and that.
You need to remember something, right? You need to understand who Bukhari was.
Right.
Where he was from, right?
Yeah,
Bukhara, right? That's where it goes. Bukhara is Uzbekistan. And he actually was a student of Ahmed ibn Hanbal.
Was it Muslim? Okay,
Muslim bin Hajjaj was also from there, yeah.
Wasn't Hanbal
is the 4th Imam. So Hanbal was Abu Hanifa. He was with the companions.
Yeah.
And so was, to be fair, Imam Malik. So I know the Christians say it's removed. Technically, the penning into a codex is removed. I grant you. It is removed.
Centuries.
Two centuries. Right? Okay. However, we have a clear line, right, from Imam Bukhari over to Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, his teacher. And by the way, just as a very important point, Imam Ahmed actually read his code. And he actually agreed with it. In fact, he used to say the greatest book of hadith before I read this one was Imam Malik's. No, Muslims a little bit after. Muslims like 2 or 3 years. They actually died together in Uzbekistan.
So why is it the only surviving copy, like earliest, is like, for example, Imam Malik or like
Imam Malik?
Yeah.
His codex.
Yeah. Why is he the earliest surviving copy you have got?
The manuscript.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be many reasons for that. I mean, I know the answer to this. Idiot. Right. The sacking of Baghdad in the 1200s. We lost everything. We lost basically everything.
Everything.
Mostly everything. Because remember,
that's
Baghdad.
Imagine an argument for the first 2 years of
well, we can't literally make the same argument because we were persecuted for 300 years.
But luckily for us, luckily, we had more than one learning center. right?
So did we.
I know. We had a learning center. The Umayyads survived in Spain for a long time until obviously the Inquisition. We're not going to go there, right?
I mean, hey,
Anything to do? I mean, fair enough.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna go in. We're not gonna go in.
with the Inquisitions, right? The Muslims weren't very nice when they came over there in the first time. Anyway, they were killing people like all throughout Europe.
Yeah, the soldiering Turks were just like butchering.
Okay. So very simply.
You mean the Battle of Tours? The Battle of Tours.
The Battle of Tours was about to extend into France and then into further.
It was a raiding party.
Huh?
It was a raiding party.
It wasn't a raiding party.
It
was an invasion attempt.
I mean, it's still an invasion because you are technically, but it's still a raiding
because
party.
afterwards there were no further attempts made to go into France.
Yeah, because they realized that they had what's his name? Charles the Hammer, right?
The grandfather of Charlemagne.
Yeah, we didn't.
Charlemagne is base, man.
We didn't want it. We
Look
didn't see a need to expand anymore, right? We had Spain.
I don't know about that. Islam is meant to enter every household. How can it enter every household if it stops in France?
Yeah.
Well, through Dawah and these things.
Through Dawah.
Yeah.
You're telling me Muhammad himself said in Sahih al-Bukhari that spread the word through da'wah and giving food.
I think he said I have been commanded to fight everybody.
Yeah, he said he's been commanded to fight everybody until they submit or pay the jizya.
That's what I said.
I think that's in context of Fatah Mecca, the victory of Mecca.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any other hadith that tell that's the way Muhammad says I have been commanded to give dawah and food to people until they accept Islam?
Yes, in the Quran. It's got dawah.
Where does Muhammad say I have been commanded to give dawah to people until they accept Islam and don't pay jizya?
No. Remember this, and again, the context of that is Fatah Mecca, right? So remember, the way we understand this, and this is what the scholars agree on as well. The Arabian Peninsula was supposed to be rededicated to the worship of the God of Abraham, right? So anybody who remains in there, you do have an ultimatum, right? The ultimatum is you accept Islam, right? Or you go somewhere else. And if you refuse
Wait. Did you just say go somewhere else? Because Muhammad didn't say go somewhere else. He said you either obey it or you're dead. That's it.
No, he said that's why he sent certain people out of the Arabian Peninsula.
So when he attacked and persecuted and killed the Banu Quraysh Jews,
Banu Qurayza?
I think they're called Banu Qurayza. Something like that.
Yeah.
When he attacked them, and by the way, they were unaware, so they didn't even know it was going to happen. Right?
They were aware that they committed treason.
But did they have the right to then leave, or were they imprisoned, some of them, taken slaves, some of them, and murdered the males?
Well, you got to remember, I'm glad you said because that's from Ibn Ishaq. But in Sahih Bukhari, it says they killed all the warriors. That's Sahih Bukhari.
AKA males.
Yeah. Warriors.
Yeah. I don't know, because remember,
they all hadith that literally say once a person grows pubic hair, they're ready for war. So it's like.
Well, no, but also remember when the guy came back to the Prophet ﷺ and presented himself, and the Prophet ﷺ still, because he was 14 at this time, and so you would have pubic hair. He looked at him, saw that he wasn't ready for war, he said, no, not yet. And then it was like 2 years later, he came back and he was a bit bigger, and he said, yeah, okay, he's ready for war now.
But that's not what it said.
That's not what it says.
It was strictly about pubic hair only.
It was literally about pubic hair.
I know.
It didn't mention size.
I know. That's in Ibn Ishaq. The pubic hair's in Ibn Ishaq. Right? And Ibn Ishaq is not as authentic as Bukhari.
No, it's in a hadith. I can show you.
It's in the hadith.
Yeah. Let me just get up. Sorry. What time is it? I've got to go in a bit.
Yeah, we're getting pulled in, man. We can finish on this.
It's fine.
I like Banu Qurayza. Banu Qurayza's nice.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Banu Qurayza. I love Banu Qurayza.
You love the Mohammedan. You run them out and prison the people.
Look, when it comes to the Jewish people, right?
While he mentions that, I was going to mention the idea of the fighting all people until they accept Allah or whatever, right? Is only immediate to the current vicinity. Then what about the expansionist capability of Islam, where they, following the death of Muhammad, went into other parts of the world and then did the exact same thing Muhammad was doing in Arabia? Were they wrong in doing that?
No.
Or is there scope? That means that the scope within that context that Muhammad was talking about for Muslim armies to go into non-Muslim lands, fight battles and potentially conquer them, and then also establish that same line of thinking that in your argument was meant for Arabia in other parts of the world like Egypt and Syria.
Yeah, so the argument for that is we didn't start that war. That's the argument. We didn't start it. It was actually started by the Byzantines, and also the Sassanids as well. We're coming from the east in northern Arabia, and so it was a reaction.
But nobody. Egypt was conquered in 638. They didn't do anything.
I'm the Nas, I'm the Nas.
They didn't do anything to the
Well, you're part of the Byzantine Empire.
Egypt.
At
in
the time.
638.
Yeah, it was part of the Byzantine Empire. Yeah. It was taken by the Persians briefly before that, but it was taken back by the Byzantines.
Then can you show me an example of Egyptian Byzantines supposedly fighting the Muslims before 638?
Byzantine.
So you said Egypt was part of the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
Were the Egyptian Byzantines, I need to look this up because I've never heard that before, but were the Egyptian Byzantines fighting the Muslim armies before 638?
The Byzant. Well, I mean, again, it's an empire, isn't it? So by extension, you are involved by being a part of that empire. Remember, this is the age of empires. This is just how it worked, right?
And Spain, what did they do?
So Spain, our argument is this: we were asked to come over. The aid was asked from Tariq bin Ziyad, and he went over to obviously aid. I can't remember which king it was. It wasn't Roderick, because Roderick was the one on the other side. It was someone else. They were Unitarians, and they were being persecuted by the Trinitarian kings of that time. The king, I believe, is King Roderick.
You were asked for help, not to conquer the location.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can't help what people do, David. God.
so it was wrong.
It could have been wrong. Yeah. If again, I'm not on the ground. I don't know what's happening. You know, fights could have broken out. We're already here now. There's now this void. Okay, let's just move in. You know, this is how
Okay, so
history. You know, this is how it works.
I'm letting you know what speak. So I just wanted to just read out this. So this is the one about the Jews being killed, right?
Yeah.
This is after they surrender, right? It has been narrated on the authority of Aisha, who said, this is Sahih...
Which book is it, sorry?
Sorry, Sahih Muslim, right, 17... I said Sahih Bukhari, my bad.
No worries.
Right? Saad was wounded on the day of battle of the ditch. A man from the Quraysh, called Ibn al-Arika, shot at him an arrow which pierced the artery in his middle of his forearm. The Messenger of Allah pitched a tent for him in the mosque and would inquire after him, being in close proximity. When he returned from the ditch and laid down his arms and took a bath, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, and he was removing dust from his hair as if he had just returned from the battle. The latter said, "You have laid down arms, by God we haven't yet laid them down. So march against them." The Messenger of Allah asked, "Where?" He pointed to Banu Qurayza. So the Messenger of Allah, may peace be upon him, fought against them. They surrendered at the command of the Messenger of Allah, but he referred the decision about them to Sa'd, who said, "I decided about them that those of them who can fight be killed." So they already surrendered. And he's still saying, those of them who can fight, be killed, their women, children taken prisoners, and their properties distributed amongst the Muslims. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
So you agree with that, 100%?
Yeah. So
you agree with this method of attack?
I do.
But you told me earlier that no, Muhammad in fact led people away. He didn't imprison anybody.
No,
he just led them out of the country.
This tribe, Banu Qurayza, they are responsible for betraying the Muslims. By the way, at a very pivotal battle, the Battle of the Trench, as you mentioned, right? The Battle of the Trench, we were outnumbered by 20,000, right? There was it was an army of 20,000 Confederation tribes that surrounded Medina, and we dug a trench around it. I mean the Muslims, right? We dug a trench around it, right? And then what Banu Qurayza tried to do is they basically were in cahoots with those that Arab Confederation armies, right? And they said, look, you can come in from behind and flank them, right? But then in that moment, right, while these negotiations were taking place, a storm came, and they had to basically abandon their post, and then the entire encirclement was abandoned, right? And so then you read obviously Jibril. Yeah, he said to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "You put down your arms, but it's not over yet. These people have just betrayed you, right? They completely got rid of their treaty with you, and they were about to side against you as well."
Doesn't say that in Hadith.
No, but there's other hadiths that mention this.
Right.
Yeah. So when it's and again, Ibn Ishaq does as well. I don't take all of Ibn Ishaq, obviously, but there are some things that obviously when it aligns with our Sahih tradition, we take it.
Because the problem I have is that the same thing happens with the Banu Mastalik, where Muhammad just goes and attacks them. They surrender. The Banu Mastalik. Banu Mastalik.
Is that another Jewish tribe?
Yeah, it's another Jewish tribe.
What I know about the other two Jewish tribes is that they were told to leave.
So, gentlemen.
Oh, Bani Nadir.
Is it? I don't think it's Bani Nadir.
Let's wrap things up with the video.
Okay.
And then
let me just end on this, because I did mention it.
Next time I come, we'll talk about Banu Qurayza.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, Banu Qurayza.
So I'm just going to read. It's a small hadith anyway. Sahih Muslim 1730, right? And he murders them on the way, by the way. Ibn Ayyub reported, "I wrote to Nafi inquiring of him whether it was necessary to extend to disbelievers an invitation to accept Islam before meeting them in a fight. He wrote in reply to me that it was necessary in the early days of Islam." Right, that's fine. The Messenger of Allah made a raid upon Banu Mastalik, right? while they were
That's not a
unaware.
Jewish tribe, by the way.
That's not a Jewish tribe.
That's not a Jewish tribe.
Right, so Banu Quraysh, Banu
Hunayka, and Banu Nadir were the three.
Right, but the Banu, that doesn't mean
No,
Jew.
Banu just means tribe.
Oh, well, fair
like
enough.
the prophet is from Bani Hashim.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's still a tribe, so like,
yeah,
still
it's a tribe.
fair enough.
Yeah, I understand.
Banu Mustalik, while they were unaware and their cattle were having a drink at the water, he killed those who fought and imprisoned others. On that very day, he captured Jurara bin al-Harith. Nafi said that this tradition was laid to him by Abdullah ibn Himar, who himself was among the raid. So basically, he killed them after making a raid on them unaware.
Yes.
Right.
They're at war. They're at war.
So,
Raid.
but it just affirms my point. Muhammad didn't go to preach dawah and to give people free Qurans. He went to murder people and to take over the Arabian Peninsula.
Remember, this is the time of war, right? And remember, the time of Mecca, there was no war, right? There was persecution, but there was no war. In which case, you give dawah, like we're doing here. We're not at war with anyone here, right? We're living here in this country peacefully.
But we're talking about a group that were unaware. They were not attacking Muhammad, otherwise they would have been aware.
No. This is one of the Arab tribes that were part of Quraysh. Yeah.
Right.
What did you say? What was the area called? Because if you
Let me
say
get
the
up
area, you said it, and it clicked with me because it's near Mecca.
Yeah. So the basically it's Banu Mustalik, Mustalik.
Yeah.
Captured bin Arif. Doesn't say the area. Wait. And wrote to Nafi inquiring from him whether it was necessary to extend to disbelievers an invitation to accept Islam. So this is talking about disbelievers, by the way. Can't be talking about Muslims, right?
Yeah.
Before meeting them in a fight, he wrote in reply to me that it was necessary in the early days of Islam. The Messenger of Allah made a raid upon Banu Mustalik while they were unaware and their cattle were having a drink at the water. He killed those who fought and imprisoned others. On that very day, he captured Jariah bin... Can you calm down a bit, man? Seriously, it's bloody annoying. Come on. I know, but it's just like I'm trying to read and the guys... Jariah... Yeah, that's fine. Jariah bin al-Harith, Nafi said that this tradition was related to him by Abdullah bin Umar. So it doesn't really mention where it was from.
Yeah. I'm going to do some research on that. Bani Mustalik, yeah?
Yeah, Banu Mustalik, right.
I'll do some research on that.
Do you want a hadith number at all?
He's rubbing
That's
around,
right.
turned up, and you've done him, and now he don't love me no more.
Oh, we did have an hour conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for being honest. We've been here for longer than an hour.
I've got to be honest, I can't lie.
He went and he's come back and we're still here.
Well, I've aged, but I've got loads of evidence for you, but not at my feet.
Well, if you want to have a conversation, I don't mind. I mean, I'm done here.
I'll speak to you.
But it was a nice conversation anyway. I think it's one of our best to be honest.
Yeah. Sometimes it's frenemies. Frenemies?
Yeah, there's too much shouting, man.
Let's not
Yeah, it's
pretend.
alright.
All right,
Let's just